Recording is on.
Okay, great. Well, y'all, thank y'all for making it to week 5. I'm really impressed and actually humbled that I have people showing up to this when I just threw it out there originally on LinkedIn wanting to do something. I wasn't expecting such a great response, and I really appreciate, everyone being here. As much as y'all have, I really do appreciate it. Roman might join us. I told you some of y'all earlier, he texted me at 2:38 this morning, and he was still working on a project, still working with people. So I'm not holding out for him. And I wish, Shamari would come in too, but who knows? Talking with Matt earlier this week is where came up with this topic about personal bias in business and when do you draw that line. And I think it's really apt for what we're facing now. There's so much misinformation and disinformation out there about what's actually going on and the facts of what is really happening. And there's people with every viewpoint on this is BS. There's not even a virus to we're all gonna die. And when wherever you are in that spectrum, I don't think anyone has the right now to say either way. So I mean that's kind of where we're at now. And the quote I'm going to open up with this week actually has no, I guess, person tied to it, but I thought this was very good. I stopped explaining myself when I realized people only understand from their level of perception. So, you can speak till you're blue in the face, but until you're that person, their life experiences where they stand and, what they've had, they'll never see it from your exact viewpoint. And it's wasted breath too. And what this means in my business right now is luckily, I haven't seen much of a slowdown, and all my clients that I've been dealing with seem to be on the exact same page I am with this whole thing, that business must go on. There's no reason that we should be shutting down an entire economy, one of the best economies, to just come to a halt for a flu. So the odd part that I saw on this that we weren't expecting is the landlord side. That's where we've hit almost all of our walls with my clients, is trying to get in buildings, trying to get the landlords to move on it. Originally we thought that they would be happy to have any type of new business moving in, but it seems they were all scared. They didn't know how their own tenants were going to be paying, if they were going to be paying, and everything like that. But what I was seeing is that almost all business owners that I've been dealing with, they're of the mind that, this is BS. And it's kind of funny. I haven't run into many people that don't work, in a professional setting, anything, that think that we should have done this. But trying to balance bias in business is tough, especially when you're an individual like me that is very opinionated, and I slip up a lot and let my feelings known. That's my biggest, fault. I've had issues. I've had, times in the past where I've caught myself and I've been so happy I didn't say something. But, trying to balance your own beliefs and assuming that everyone else has them is, can cause trouble with trying to run your own business or, deal with your clients on a day-to-day basis. So that, that's my stance on it, and that's where I was kind of coming out with this. Matt, since, we were the ones starting the conversation, if you want to lead us off going into it, I'd appreciate that. And I'll shut up. Can't hear you.
There we go. That probably works a little better.
Yep.
I'm completely with you on that. Also have learned over the years to pick your words carefully. And I remember a youth mentor as I was growing up, he was a DA, and he had a sign on the wall that said, like, "Lord, grant me the wisdom to use the right words, but more so the wisdom to know when to shut up." And that always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
you definitely have to, a lot of times you know, weigh your words like rocks and use them appropriately. Because you're right, a lot of, you know, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of disinformation in everything that we're seeing. And, you know, what do you use? What do you believe? What do you go by? That's a tough call. I've actually got a lunch set up for Tuesday. Don't know if we're going to find a place that's going to be, you know, available to do that, but we're going to give it a shot. The guy I'm having lunch with, he's kind of a trailblazer too, and you know, we're kind of like, okay, somebody's got to start getting moving here. And I actually just saw this morning that the Peachtree Road Race has been moved to Thanksgiving, which is upsetting because that's July 4th. You know, it's like we're not back to close to normal enough by July. We're in major trouble. So, you know, I hope that's just being overly cautious and unnecessary. I really hope so, because if not, it's a whole other story. You know, Hartsfield Jackson is 95% down in business, which that's you know, they can't do that at all, especially for this long. You know, we do a lot of work in the aviation industry, so I follow that pretty closely. And you know, they're talking about different ways of arranging seats and how do we set up you know, personal protection in the queuing zones, and you know, but of course the airlines on the other hand are like, hey, we don't want to spend all kinds of money if this is going to be temporary, which we all believe it's going to be very temporary. We don't want to reconfigure our entire gate areas for something that will be gone. It's, you know, no one seems to be ready to really take that first leap yet. And I think they're all just very cautious that the information is just not out there. And then, you know, you see things in media that someone does make a suggestion or something, and you got both sides jumping in there, you know, to usually go against that information. And it's, of course, everybody is an epidemiologist now.
Right.
So it's, I don't know. It's just I guess part of this internet culture now that we have is everything's instant and the reaction is instant, and that's not always a good thing. So it's you know, whereas as our business, we're taking it week by week. I think I mentioned to you guys that we were doing reconfiguration of our desk space. So they actually ordered the wrong panel, so we can't go back right now if we wanted to.
Oh man,
it will definitely be out another week. But I my guess when we went into this would be early to mid-May, and I think that's still going to hold. More and more states are starting to open up. You know, and I saw California yesterday is going to open their schools back up in July. And part of that idea was, one, to help make up some of the ground they feel like they've lost, but also to get the kids back into that routine and back into school, to get people back to work and be able to do that more effectively. You know, a lot of times California leads the way in trends, so kind of hope that's true. Outside of that, that's, you know, it's, I also saw an interesting story about how Sweden is dealing with the pandemic, and they have isolated their testing and observing their elderly population and those people who are more at risk. But the general population isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
They're back at work. They're not wearing masks. They're out going to restaurants and everything. And well, you know, Sweden is very homogeneous, so that kind of helps. But they said, you know what, if this population, if they get it, it's going to be minor. We can deal with it. That will actually help build an immunity that'll get rid of this quicker than if we just completely avoid it and stay at home for the rest of our lives.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, Sweden is not known for being cutting edge on anything. So it was interesting to see their take was very different than ours. You know, on the business side, I mean, we're still going to have to tiptoe into that. But I think, you know, enough people are ready to just start pushing it and testing those waters and start taking those first steps. You know, in terms of like networking and events, that's still down the road. A lot of that's been pushed to next year. You know, the fall conferences, everything, I think they'll still happen. But it's not a guarantee.
Yeah. I got a quick question on your since y'all are redoing y'all's offices, what's kind of the flow going with it? I mean, you know, everyone I've talked to seems to think that the new norm is going to be working from home or satellite offices and then using an actual office as a hub to bring everything like the final project or a presentation forward. So I'm curious to see how y'all are setting up and trying to move forward with that.
Yeah, in architecture, that's a little harder to do. Although our office supports a lot of national efforts, a lot of the aviation work. So a lot of our people are generally on job sites or in meetings with stakeholders anyway. So I mean, there's a few people in my office I see maybe 1 week a month. We're reconfiguring actually our desk space to be able to bring in more people. But we've got a pretty good amount of space between us already, and that'll actually increase.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen your offices. Yeah.
Distancing. Yeah, that's still going to be good. But architecture is a little slow on the complete work from home model. It's pretty collaborative.
Right.
You know, and so we're not making any changes in expanding any conference areas or anything. We're actually gonna, I think at full capacity we'll be able to get 24, 25 in. We're at 18 now, so beyond that we're gonna have to look at new space.
Gotcha.
Well, that's mostly a bathroom issue.
Right.
We did have to add one in this renovation, so we got 3. So.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Andrew?
Yeah. I agree with a lot of different things. I mean, I think it's a weird time for everybody. You know, where things are going to land is going to be interesting. You know, you brought up Sweden, and that's definitely an interesting case. I've been following a little bit about it. It's I guess they think they've hit their peak. I think as of 2 days ago is what it sounded like, and they think they've started to get that herd immunity going. So we'll see how that pans out. You know, I think it's slightly different. You know how it's going to play out with just city life versus Sweden, a little bit more spread out. So we'll see. Hopefully they're onto something and we can get back to it. As for going back to work, our company just had a virtual town hall with all of our companies all across the world, actually. So we had people from Australia and Europe and all across. It was interesting to see how they're thinking about coming back. Seems like Australia is thinking about coming back mid-May, back to the office, which should be interesting. Our company is thinking early June, probably around that time frame. Honestly, I think it's going to be more, at least for our company, which is more remote, can easily be done remote, except for moving the money, which we'll have to have some people in the office for. So it's going to be phased. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or the week before, but I think it's going to start out with just skeleton crews in offices doing the essentials, getting mail, moving whatever is needed, and then slowly ramping up to 50%, 75%, 100%. So I personally don't think I'm going to be in the office until July. That's my take on it. we'll see. I mean, our office is fortunate that we're working together pretty closely. With that, though, I wonder, and one of the things that some of my friends have been talking about, and I think I brought it up here, but is the ability to share desks in the future. So you would do Monday, Tuesday, I would have the desk, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Reed would have my desk, and I would be working from home, and then Friday, everybody's working from home. So there would be some aspect of that would be a shared aspect, as well as reducing the square footage of the commercial of the space.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very interesting to see how companies handle that. It might be a way to get additional employees into their company without adding additional overhead. Not sure if that's going to be a trend that goes forward, but I mean, our CEO is definitely impressed with how things are working remotely and not a single person in the office. So I think seeing how this is going to work going forward, it could really benefit a lot of different industries that have the ability to work remotely. Not only that, you'd be able to work in different states too. It would increase the ability to get better personnel. That's not regional. So we don't have to hire someone here in Atlanta for XYZ position. You'd be able to go to California, New York, and hire them. Now the pay structure might be slightly different, but still that might open further opportunities to increase the business and, have better people working for you. Or vice versa, you could maybe even find some cheaper work that could be working in, towns that don't have as much, living expenses. So different aspects there. Honestly, I don't know any other.
Yeah, no, I do. How is this affecting your clients? You're advising, consulting on these massive loan deals, these construction deals. I mean, everywhere I go to Atlanta, it seems like construction's still full throttle. I mean, just right around me, the cranes are there. There's crews there every day. 70% aren't wearing masks. They don't give a damn. So how do the higher ups perceiving this that you're dealing with?
Yeah, so a few things on that. One, a lot of our clients are asking for additional meetings with the borrower, just in order to get some idea, how are you handling this? That kind of happened last month. We're continuing that some, not as much. It was kind of more of a feeler. It's probably something I should probably put on my list to do today, to just reach out and see if we want to set up some calls. There are some borrowers that are really being affected, by this, mainly the ones in New York. New York is still not open for construction, and they recently they issued a whole bunch of emergency construction permits to buildings, which they thought was a smart idea, and it was going to allow some construction businesses to actually continue work in a lot of our companies, such as condo buildings and some apartment complexes. So what happened was, I want to say that happened about 3 weeks ago. We got approved on one of our jobs. We got approved to do that, and they got remobilized. Construction takes a little bit to get mobilized and remobilized rather. And they started getting there. They worked for about a week, and as of I think it was Tuesday, New York issued that they granted too many emergency permits, and they revoked about 2,000. I think it was like 2,000. So our project, which is a multi-billion, over $1 billion, it had to get shut down again. So after they just got remobilized, and it just really hurts the subcontractors a lot. It's very unfortunate because their families, they're like, oh, do we go? Do we not go? And then they go. They got remobilized, and then they worked for about a week, and then they had to leave. And so that's where I'm seeing some aspects of it. There is, affordable housing in New York is considered an essential business. So all of our affordable housing projects are still going on in New York. The problem with that is a lot of the subcontractors are refusing to work. They don't want to and they're getting pressure from their families because the families don't want them to go into work. Another aspect that is absolutely crazy, especially in New York, is that some of the people are claiming unemployment. They're getting checks of $1,100 a week. That's a lot of money. That is more than they were making on the job site.
Yeah.
So why the hell would they go back to work, make less money, and risk infecting themselves and doing other stuff and having to move and work? So that's another big issue in the New York jobs. So I think that's that can't continue. It really can't. I mean, it's $1,100 to every single one of those people every single week. That's just putting that city so much debt, and it's going to cause significant issues. And I know people are starting to throw the word of hyperinflation around. This would be one of those factors that go into that, and what our generation over the next 30 years might have to deal with just inflation in general. On the other side, I think, Reed, you mentioned something else, and I can't remember what I was going to say about it.
About the higher ups, how they were feeling about it all, or
yeah, I mean, for the most part, I haven't seen any deals that are going completely sideways. I have one deal that was going sideways before this, and now it's just hit a complete 180, and it's just like it was already going the wrong direction, and it was supposed to pay off, meaning it was going to refinance everything and kind of reconfigure, and with a new lender, and it completely fell through as it was supposed to happen. I think supposed to happen actually January 30th, and then it was like February 20th, and then April, and then completely off the table. So it was already sideways, and now it's just the interest alone, it's all in complete default, and it's just a mess. So, it's other deals though. I mean, people are making provisions, and people are working with everyone, and people want their money faster now, but at the same time, it's like things are still moving. Which is good. There's still issues that we're dealing with. Obtaining title is the biggest thing right now that we're having issues with. That's a big factor because the clerk's offices or the county clerk's offices are closed. So registering liens, getting information on that type of stuff isn't happening as quickly as you would want. So the lenders are trying to find out, well, okay, how do I know if there's a lien on this property? You sometimes you can't. Mm-hmm. And so you're just throwing the dice out there on whether or not there is an issue. So that's where we're seeing a little bit more lenders are getting a little bit more tight with their review. I would say the other aspect, and I can shut up. We're seeing a lot because I feel like I'm talking a lot. We are noticing more people questioning bills, such as our bill, and further up, they're looking at different things. So people are definitely using this time to review their expenses and questioning, wait, why are we paying you guys $2,000 a month? What do you do? Why are you paying this? So we're seeing a lot more of that, where it's like, here's the agreement, this is what it is. And, that not just with us, but other, even, running title. Oh, I didn't know we had to do that. I mean, I will say the lending agreements that these borrowers sign, a lot of times they don't read.
Yeah.
And, it's when you're signing a $200 million loan, you would think they would want to read all of the provisions about what goes in there. And the lender, of course, keeps it very open. Borrower is responsible for all fees associated with the financing of this loan. And one of those aspects is paying a company like us, or paying a company like a title company, or the construction consultant. Each one of those is, that amounts to close to $5,000, maybe even more, depending on, different aspects, anywhere from 1,000 up to 15,000. So they're looking at things a little bit more closer, and I would not expect things to be more scrutinized in the next few months.
Okay.
and going forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like, your clients are the ones that are hit the hardest are the ones that have the cities and the states that are more extreme on their lockdown provisions. So, it's like if you're dealing with a state that is trying to halt business like New York, that's definitely going to be harder hit than Atlanta, where we're at least allowed to still do some type of work in construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will also say that one of the clients in New York that it is a very large condo complex. They indicated that this has costs in additional general conditions over $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive to see. I mean, because they've done everything. They had a medic on site so that they could start working. They had additional hand washing stations. They had every single employee had to wear gloves and masks. They staggered all of the trades. They staggered what floors people were working on. I mean, the additional manpower. They had police. They had off-duty cops. They had so many different things. I mean, it's so secure, and what they were doing in order to get this emergency permit and how they were going to handle some of this was very expensive to them.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, thank you. That's good. That's not good to know that, I didn't realize that New York was completely shut down like that on construction, but hopefully, they get back to work soon like we are. Well, staying with the lending route, Cheryl, you want to go next?
Sure. So, God, there's a lot to unpack here, and there's some things that people mentioned that I didn't think of. But one thing I also want to mention is I think part of our reluctance to get started again is that we are such a litigious society, right? So where does someone place blame if they get sick because they've been mandated to go back to work, right? And so I think that's part of the reluctance for big companies, say like Delta, right, to get moving again, right? That they have concern around that. So if we were to talk about lending, in my world, I'm seeing some loosening up so far, which is good. But the bad news is, and I just got this email this morning, is that CoreLogic, who does a lot of research for our end of the business, is predicting that in a worst case scenario currently, the unemployment could rise to 20% in this quarter alone and stay above 10% throughout 2021. And they predict the number of housing delinquencies. So when we talk about delinquencies, we're talking about 90 days or more late, to 5.5 million homeowners. So for me, getting the economy moving and getting people working is really important, because this could all go really sideways for the housing industry. Will we see something like a 2008? No, the collapse of the market won't happen, but the availability of buyers for the people that need to now sell. So once you start being 90 days late, you end up in a situation where you have to try to catch up, or you have to sell. So that brings more homes to the market, less qualified buyers. Yes, we'll see a turnaround, but not massive like 2008. So, that's what's kind of going on in my business world. Personally, we're talking about perception and our biases, right? And I struggle personally with, I hear good things like Sweden, right? And I very much err on the side of natural medicine. But in my personal life, I have a mom at home that is very susceptible. She's on 24/7 oxygen. So how do I reconcile my personal feelings and biases to, I want to go out. I understand very much that it's important for me to sort of be exposed and build an immunity. But how do I reconcile that with coming home to my mom? Right? So that's one side of it. And then how do I share that with my clients? You know, social media, right? I made a post when this was an interesting social experiment, which I didn't know it was going to be. I'm usually very, very careful about what I put on social media about my personal views, other than about health. I'm very adamant about that. But my political views and my business views, I usually keep those kind of tamped down on social media because it can get very ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I borrowed a post from someone. I copied it word for word, and it was about getting the economy moving, getting things open. And the person that I borrowed it from had to delete her post because she was so verbally attacked on that post. You know, people were essentially telling her that she was condoning murder because she wanted businesses to open up.
Right.
Contrast that with my post. I didn't have anybody comment publicly to the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 people contact me privately and say, hey, what am I reading here? What are your views? Why do you feel that way? Which was amazing, right?
Yeah.
It came to me. Now we had opposing views for sure. But we were able to have a conversation about it. And then, you know, I listened to them, they listened to me, which was great. So, you know, it's so odd that there was such a differing opinion and attack, right, for this other person who's also a female in business, right? So very, very similar situations. I think this situation is so polarizing. And so it's frustrating to not be able to share my views, right? But what it does mean, though, is my little social experiment is that I have surrounded myself with even people I don't actually know on social media, right? With people that are in sort of my same space, whether they say so or not, right?
Right.
So that was an interesting social experiment.
That is, and you know, I'm very shocked to hear that no one, no matter which side you were on, you know, lashed out. I mean, you know, the world that we live in, like you said, is insanely polarizing right now, and it doesn't matter what side you're on. You know, people are just ready to fight over it.
For sure.
And, you know, just what you said about getting the economy started and everything. It's sad that people, you know, can't see the benefit of it and literally think you're leading people on a death march.
Right. And so, you know, what she heard was that businesses were choosing money over lives.
Right.
But nobody's talking about what lives will be lost, or not necessarily in death, but the lives that they have will be lost if we stay enclosed. We're going to have much more suicides if we stay much longer. We're going to have homelessness rise at a meteoric rate. I mean, it's just going to explode if we don't get this economy moving. So it isn't necessarily businesses choosing money, right? We've got to get this economy moving, or the larger side effects, aside from, you know, and I don't want to sound crass, but we're going to lose people. We lose people every day, right? So I have a hard time reconciling with stopping all business with losing a few people. And what's the widespread effect that we do if we keep going at this? And so, you know, I have sympathy and empathy, and my heart hurts for these people that are dying because they've caught this disease. But the widespread effects, I think, are much larger in the end.
Said. No, well said. Very true. You're 100% correct. I think probably all of us are on the same side. Don't want to speak for everyone and my own biases, but I feel like, you know, we're probably all in the same thing. You know, it's sad that we see the media and everyone jump on the worst reports out there. You know, I was reading, someone sent me an article this morning, and it was actually from the Washington Examiner, which is crazy to think they were going to say this, but they're like, this was all blown up because the media wanted views, and they put together the two studies, and it's like it's a 0.3% mortality rate at its highest, and it's sad that everyone's thinking millions, and we had 80,000 die last year of the flu. I'm just like, so.
Right. Well, and I think so. There's more than that, I think, going on, and I'm not in any way, shape. I'm not in the healthcare industry, right? But in the rush to try to control this, and then also try to for the government to support others, right? We're trying to help, or the government's trying to help, right? They're pumping money, and without looking at the spider web effect, right? And so when we're pumping money to healthcare because they need it, right? They're in a different situation. We've got those 80,000 people that die of the flu, and now we add this additional thing, right? No matter how bad it is, we're still adding, and we're overwhelming them, so they need money, right? So now we're saying, well, if you have a COVID-related problem and you list that as a death, we're going to give you some more money because then we know you need help. So there's always that human element where they say, our hospital needs more money. What do we do? Right? It's a human element. So I don't know. That's a big fat rabbit hole. I can go all the way down.
No, that was great. I mean, seriously, that was great and very well said. And I'm glad you did your social experiment, because
it wasn't intentional.
I know it's like I do not post on social media unless it's like LinkedIn. I mean, and it's only about business. Like I'm such an opinionated person, and it's very hard. I'm one of those people that just want to shake everybody, be like, "What? Like, stop! Think for yourself." So I feel you completely on that, and I'm sure it's hard, balancing your mom with oxygen as well. We come from a family that is very natural medicine as well. With my mom worked in healthcare, natural and
Right.
typical,
Well,
and then my little brother does as well. So I think we're all balancing that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then with my dad right here who had heart surgery last year, I mean, he's in a very high risk pool, and you were telling me, Dad, that you couldn't go to the dentist because you have to get antibiotics, before you can even do something like that. So, I mean, we're all in there. And Cheryl, I want to touch on one thing you said about the homelessness. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he has an Airbnb on my side of town. And he said that, he had $3,500 worth of bookings for March, and then obviously that went away. And this past week, he turned away 15 people at least that were brand new accounts, all from Atlanta, wanting to do long-term rentals. So his thought is that it seems like a bunch of people are already losing their housing or rent, and they're wanting to move in. So he's like, right now, he said he's pumping the brakes. He's like, I'm not letting anybody, because I don't want to deal with that. He's like, I don't want people moving all their stuff in. So, like you said, it's going to be bad. We're going to have suicide, domestic violence, homelessness, and then it's just going to be this overflow into everybody else's industry.
Yeah, exactly. And then you add on top of that child abuse.
Yeah.
The long-reaching social effects are going to be huge, and we've just got to get moving. And so my political leanings tend to go towards capitalist, right, which tends to go right, but I don't identify with each party wholeheartedly, right? And so I think that also, because I'm pretty quiet about my personal political out there, I think that helped with my little social experiment, right? But the fact that I am open-minded and willing to listen to both sides, and that I don't land firmly on one side or the other. It's hard. It's really hard being a woman in business to land firmly on one side or the other.
Right.
It's super hard.
Right. I understand. Yeah.
And so maybe that's why I got the different reaction. But
yeah. Well, thank
I've
you. I
got,
think that was great.
I've got a couple quick questions. You mentioned, well, first I'll say the other thing with the staying at home, I think that's very interesting. And I wonder what's going to happen with our own immunities to other things as well. You know, at least for me, I kind of got a little freaked out early on, and it's like, okay, I'm just not going to leave. And then you start thinking, is that bad? Like, if you're staying at home, not exposing to any other people, you're not exposing yourself to other germs, other contagions, other issues. Is that going to have any effect on yourself? You know, they say like, you know, getting a dog helps, you know, with allergies and being sick simply because they, you know, run around in the dirt and they bring it into the house and you start building up an immunity to different things. So I wonder if the reverse is going to happen. I wonder what the implications to antibodies are going to be for us. We're just locked down, not being exposed to, you know, work environments where you're picking up things from other people. The question I had, Cheryl, was, do you think that there's going to be a drop in home value because of that, of what you said? And with, you know, and does settling down play into that at all? Because I would think that some people are saying, oh, you know, this whole thing made me realize I want a house instead of a condo. I want to be able to, you know, also there's some legal aspects to that too. You know, what can I do in my condo? I can't go to my pool. I can't go to my, you know, workout facility. I want a house so I don't have to deal with this ever again. Is that going to kind of balance that out with the drop in home values of people losing? Sure.
So, you know, what I think will happen is right now we have less qualified buyers, right? Because we're raising credit scores, we're raising. So, you know, as an example, I can do down to 600, which most people can't right now. But we have to have six months of reserves in the bank. And the fact of the matter is that if you have a 600 credit score, you don't have 6 months of reserves in the bank. Because if you had the funds, you would not be. So the two biggest effects on your credit score are A, not paying your bills. If you have money, you're going to pay your bills, right? And B is using, more than 50% of your available credit. And if you have money, again, you're not using 50% or more of your available credit. So you don't have 6 months sitting in the bank, and you cannot use gifts for that. So we're reducing our buyer pool. So that effectively means we have more inventory, right? Because we have less competition of buyers. And then we have all of these iBuyers that are dumping their properties, right? So in a natural way, the prices will come down a little bit, even though we might have more of these people moving from condos in. But if they own a condo or a townhome, they've got to sell it, right? Yeah. That brings property to the table, more inventory again. So, and the people who are moving out of apartments don't necessarily move directly into a single family residence. So I think there will be a natural reduction to housing prices. Is it going to be huge? No. What we're already seeing is we're seeing buyers pushing sellers back, and they're starting with, instead of asking for a reduction in price, they're starting with, hey, this roof is like 8 years old. We need to have that replaced. Or the hot water heater will need to be replaced in a year or two. Let's get that replaced. We're looking for some concessions right now. That's what I'm seeing on contracts. And eventually that'll go into price reduction. Now, I have seen in my groups some of my other loan officers saying that their buyers are asking for huge price reductions, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And that's just, sellers are saying no, not right now. So it's interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that is. Are you already seeing the appraisals take a hit? I know we've seen a few in my company see some slight reductions on maybe some assets that shouldn't have been.
So that's interesting too, because as I'm running my purchases, I'm getting more and more appraisal waivers, which means you don't have to have an appraisal at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Value. And part of that was a safeguard for that Fannie and Freddie. They knew that appraisers wouldn't necessarily want to go in houses, or that sellers wouldn't want to let people in. So they increase their algorithm to allow for appraisal waivers. Now they get a lot of data, right? So they know when they get the data if we're in the ballpark, right? And that we're not some kind of big deal. And so, but I am telling all my clients that are purchasing, even if we get an appraisal waiver, you should get an appraisal, right? And so far, I'm not seeing anything wrong with that. I did tell one client that they didn't need to get an appraisal. They're buying a second home in Myrtle Beach. But they have someone, they know someone that lives in the complex where they're buying a townhome, and he very much knows the value. He's been there 10 years. So in that case, I was like, yeah, that's fine. But everybody else I'm telling, get an appraisal for sure, because you could see that starting to drop. And as time goes on, I think you will. So.
Okay. Wow. Awesome. Well, thanks. I mean, oh man, I hope my value just keeps going up. I got that belt line coming through. Hopefully I'm sheltered from it.
I'm over here thinking that they should drop a little, because that's part of the reason that I decided to stay with my mom, is because I sold my house 3 years ago and it's the top of the market. I didn't want to buy. I was smart the first time, and I'd like to be smart the second time. So, if you see me starting to buy a house.
Got it. Understood. Well, great. Well, thank you, Cheryl. Dad, you want to finish it out for us and then we'll close out?
Sure. Yeah, I'll kind of try to wrap this up. Basically, kind of switching gears a little bit, but from a personal bias standpoint, obviously, this whole thing has been horrible for us as a family. We're a very close family, and I think it's been 12 weeks since I've seen my son on this video, and his wife, and and our other children and their wives. So I know not having the family together has taken its toll with us. We try to do the Zooms and everything like that to try to stay together, but that's one thing. And then another observation this week, as far as the economy is concerned, we bought a new car this week. It's a great time to buy a car, by the way. There's a lot of good deals out there, and so we decided to pull the trigger this week and buy a new car. From a business standpoint, this is my observation. I've kind of put my business and what I'm doing into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant, I deal with about 30 chambers of commerces across the country. And these people are paid the same, whether during this COVID thing, whether they go to work or not. So there's some complacency. So they're not interested in really doing any work. And I'm just saying this with this group. They're not interested in communicating with their members or anything like that. They're sitting at home watching soap operas and getting fat and not really having to do a whole lot. Kind of like what Andrew was saying about the segment of the country that is making $1,100 a week, and they're making more money at home rather than to go back to work. Well, these people aren't making more money, but they're making the same money, and really, maybe putting in 5 to 6 hours a week of real work. Then I have kind of the drivers out there. I deal with national associations. Well, these associations get a revenue stream from a lot of the things that I do. They are very interested, one, in keeping their membership up and communicating with their membership and showing value in their membership, so that their businesses that are members during this time aren't looking at their bottom line and saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be a member of that association right now. Maybe we should drop that membership. Maybe we should do this or that. And then I have large employers, like some of y'all work for large employers, and they are able to withstand the storm and have a plan for what they're doing. So like with Matt working at home there, but there's a plan to go back to work, and you may even be working longer hours at home than you would going to the office. I know I am. And then I have my small businesses, which they really equate to people that have from 2 employees up to about 100 employees, and they are eager to go back to work. They don't want their employees getting the unemployment or anything. They want to be able to pay them. They want to be able to generate, because another 2 months they may not be in business, and so they're very eager to get back out there. So you have two different sides of the spectrum. You have the complacency side, that no matter what, they're still going to get paid no matter what. But then you have people that actually produce and make something, and they need the economy back to continue that production. So they want to be safe. There'll probably be I believe Matt said, like the company I used to work for, they're taking their office space from holding 140 people to holding 280, and they're going to start making reservations for you to come into the office. They have found that it's cost efficient for some of their employees to work from home. So there are people that have plans for that and everything, but uh, you know, our economy, I feel like, is driven by small businesses under 100 employees, and they need to get back to work. They are anxious to get back to work. These um, owners of these companies have invested a lot of their blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of their money in buying franchises or whatever else they're doing, or in the construction business, and they just need a plan to be able to get back to work safely, and have their employees be safe. But it's kind of a mindset. You know, their employees need to have the mindset that they are going to be safe when they go back to work, and not have that mindset, oh, if I catch coronavirus, I can sue my employer or I can sue somebody else. They just have to have that mindset. And Andrew, I think, had it down pat, that with all this quarantine time, we are not exposing ourselves to other germs and things like that, and especially people that can handle it. And is when everything does get back to whatever normal is, will there be some illness because people are not are trying to be too bacteria free? So there's all those situations, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. Everybody I talk to, especially in the small employer and even large employers, they're saying, "Oh man, we just can't wait till things get back to normal and we start seeing our stock price go up, or we're seeing our equity go up in our company, or whatever like that. You know, what is it going to be in the fall?" And of course, I'm a big college football fan. A lot of my conversations start off with, "Oh man, or is UGA, are we going to have football?" And we said, "Yeah, we're going to have it. We're going to have it. You just got to think positive." And and so you get people in that mindset. Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. I don't want to give up my fall football. I don't want to give up golf. I don't want to give up things like that. And people say, "Okay, well, we just got to figure this out and get back to work." So uh, those are just some of my observations that I've been having this week. So.
Well said. Well said. I'm so ready for college football as well. Um, but I mean,
No doubt.
so you were saying, and I assume it's Matt. They're expanding for more people to be able to hold, but then they're going to be doing like reservations, like I think Andrew was talking about.
Yes. That they had contemplated this about 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but and in some areas where rent is really high, they do it, like New York and stuff. But in Atlanta, in the the office there off of Abernathy. They actually have 3 floors in that building, and they're going to consolidate down to 1 floor. And it just so happens our lease, well, I say our because I've worked there so long, but the leases are coming up for renewal. So,
Oh, well, that worked out well for them.
yeah.
This is awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have anything else they want to add, want to bring up before we close this out?
No.
Everyone's good? All right. Well, thank y'all, everyone. Some great information. I think this was, a really good one, and we all seem to flow on this, and we all kind of seem to be on the same page. I appreciate the input, and I'll see y'all next week, and hopefully we'll start moving on out of this, and maybe we can do this in person.
Well, good news, restaurants are opening, right? So,
Yep.
he was talking about he didn't know if he would have a place to have the lunch meeting. They're opening. There are 39 things that they have to adhere to open, but they're opening. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. It is. It is. I'm ready to be out. I'm going crazy.
Me too.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that I will be out really, because of my situation. So it's going to be a tough choice for me.
Hey, yeah. I'll tell you something funny up here in Dahlonega. On Friday nights, we go to a concert, and I sit in the back of my pickup truck. My wife and I do, and we all social distance from each other, but we're getting outside and getting some fresh air. So.
No, I did that last week. I did Taco Tuesday with another mortgage lender, and we just commandeered the parking lot at a restaurant and had to-go food and camp chairs and margaritas. It was great.
That is
There
great.
you go.
That is great. I know we went camping last week, and we did as much social distancing, but we went with my best friend and his girlfriend. Killed a huge rattlesnake, so that was good. But
Oh my God, I love these snakes.
15 rattles. 15 rattles. He's a big boy.
Yikes!
Yeah,
Yikes.
but I know. I'm ready to be out. I go and ride my motorcycle daily if it's sunny, and I just want to be around people. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cheryl. I know she rides too, or did. Yeah.
I did. I don't have any more. Although, so I am having with all of this, I think a lot of our priorities have changed, right? We were in a certain mindset, now we're in a different mindset. So I'm hosting a virtual vision board party. We're doing everything on Canva. And then, so you will have a virtual vision board that's on the back of, on your desktop. Mm-hmm. And so one of my pictures for my virtual that I've thrown in a folder ready to go is a new motorcycle. So.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Love it. Awesome.
I missed it.
I know.
This makes it worse.
Yeah, I know, right? It does. Well, thank y'all all again. We got to run. I really appreciate it, y'all. Y'all have a happy and safe weekend, and don't drink too much tequila or bourbon. Never.
Is there such a thing? Too much?
No.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, y'all.
Bye.